Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. And I am going to talk about the Department of Education section of Agenda 2025. Now, before I get started with that, I put the information out that I was going to do this today. And, I got a couple of comments from people, the first time about they were making sure that I knew that Donald Trump was not a part of this, and he did distance himself from this. But this 100-day plan is what these people from the Heritage Foundation and others are going to try to push through, regardless of whether he's distanced himself from it or not. So it's still relevant to know these people's thoughts. These are powerful people. It's not just everyday Joe Blow down the street. These are powerful people, and they will try to get their agenda through. So, if he's the one that gets in office, they're going to try to push some of this stuff through. Another comment said, "Oh, stop with the fear mongering," or something like that. There's nothing on here about me fear mongering. These things are things that people that are in high places want to happen. We need to know about them. One of my biggest problems with government is that they think they know everything, and they think that they know what's best for us. They think they know what's best for me, and they don't. I believe that people need to have information, and then they can decide for themselves what to do. A lot of people in government and in corporations, like I said, the corporatocracy, the government, the government, the corporations, and the banksters think that we're too stupid to figure stuff out for ourselves. And I don't like that idea at all. It bothers me because everybody has the information. The information is out there. It's on the internet. It's in books or wherever. So they can decide. A lot of people don't. A lot of people do depend on the media and all these to tell them what to do. And that's the problem. It's like if the media is telling you that this thing is good for you, I run the other direction. Anyway, so this is not fear mongering. It's nothing to fear. It's just my perspective on the financial aspects of what these folks are trying to do. So, with that said, I'm going to go over the preamble for this Agenda 2025 portion of the Education Department. Now, it says, I'm going to put it close to the camera. Federal education policy should be limited, and ultimately, the Federal Department of Education should be eliminated. Before I go any further, I want to make sure that you know that I'm in agreement with a whole lot of the stuff in here. The government school system has been a failure, especially in my community. And the other countries that are ahead of us, there are a lot of them. If you look at which countries are ahead of the United States in education, it's because we're fooling around with everything but reading, writing, and math. So let me go on. Families and students should be free to choose from a diverse set of school options and learning environments that best fit their needs. I'm in total agreement with that. Total agreement. If I'm going to give money and any kind of taxes, I want to be in control of where that money goes for the school system. So my children never graced the halls of a government school. They were always in private school and then homeschool. So there's supposed to be a rule in place. My daughter's she was an athlete. She was a 3-time junior Olympian in track and field, and she was really good in basketball. So we had the idea for her to play on the local high school team. Just go to practice in the evenings and maybe have a chance to be seen by some recruiters for college. So even though we paid real estate taxes and all that, they wouldn't let her play on the team. These are the kind of things that, I'm wasting money here because I'm not going to put my kids in these schools. My mother was a county social worker for 30 years. And when I was in high school, she used to come home with all these stories about what was going on in the government school. And I made a decision then. My children are not going to, and I just made that decision. I'm not saying everybody can do that. Sometimes people are not in a position for private school, but be involved with the school. Even now I know that they have what used to be PTA and I think it's PTSA now. A lot of folks don't show up. You got a school with 1,000 kids and 20 parents show up. That's what's happening. So you gotta first of all care about your kids' education. Okay, elementary and secondary education policy should follow the path outlined by Milton Friedman in 1955, wherein education is publicly funded, but education decisions are made by families, which is great. Ultimately, every parent should have the option to direct his or her child's share of the education funding through an education savings account or ESA, funded overwhelmingly by the state and local taxpayers, which would empower parents to choose a set of education options that meets their child's unique needs. Now, wealthy people have the ability to figure out where their children's bents are, and they can put their children in any school. That's another reason why the rich continue to get richer and the poor and middle class continue to suffer, because if you're stuck in an environment where your home is in a school district that's failing and you feel, like you can't do anything about it, then, a lot of people are trapped there. Okay, here's the rest of the manifesto of it. The future of education, freedom, and reform in the states is bright and will shine brighter when regulation and red tape from Washington are eliminated. I agree. Federal money is inevitably accompanied by rules and regulations that keep the influx of funds from having much, if any, impact on student outcomes. It raises the cost of education without raising the student achievement. To the extent that federal tax dollars are used to fund education programs, those funds should be block granted to states without strings, eliminating the need for many federal and state bureaucracies, which is what the Department of Education is, as far as I'm concerned. Eventually, policy making and funds should take place at the state and local levels closest to the affected family. So this was something that I thought about before. If I have a problem with something that's going on in the school, I should be able to go downtown Atlanta, which is about 15 minutes away, go to the Capitol and get in their faces. But with the bureaucracy of the Department of Education, you can't do that. So you're strapped. So what they're saying in this thing is take it to the states. Now, there are some dangers to that, which we'll get into a little bit, but overall, I agree with that part of it. And stopping executive overreach. Congress should set policy, not presidents through pen and phone executive orders, and not agencies through regulations and guidelines. National emergency declaration should expire absent of express congressional authorization within 60 days. And I think that has something to do with this whole school shutdown thing. Now, so here are the specific reforms. I'm going to check the chat before I go to the specific reforms that I'm in. The Department of Education section was really, really long. And that's part of the reason why I didn't do it yesterday, because I had so much going on. I had a Zoom call, and after it was over, this thing was pages and pages, and it took me a while to finish it. So I just put it for today. So happy Wednesday to everybody. I'm doing some writing exercises this week to help me figure out the right home-based business. Great. Doing a mind map or just brainstorm on paper. And there are a lot of them out there. I've got two big lists of them that I'll be sharing when I do the challenge the week of the 21st through the 23rd. The truth scares many, but the few are ready. That's what we need to be. And we need to be getting more people out of fear. When people are educated, the fear is eliminated. So a lot of people aren't educated and they're fearful, and they say things, they parrot things that they hear on television and wherever they get it from. But when you bring the facts to people, then you bring the facts to people. There is a quote that one of my attorneys told me back in probably 2004. He said, when an honestly mistaken man stumbles across the truth, going forward, either he's no longer mistaken or he's no longer honest. When an honestly mistaken man stumbles across the truth, going forward, either he's no longer mistaken or he's no longer honest. And a lot of times people want to stay in that whatever that is they're in. And when you bring them the truth, they don't want to hear it. They'll run from it. Those are the people that I run from. Anyway, I think homeschooling is a great option if you can do it. It is exactly a great option. So my children were in private school. And then when this whole thing happened with me and the IRS, the private school that they were in for like the last 5 years told us we couldn't come back the next year. So we ended up in a homeschool program, which was the best. It was the best thing. There's a bigger agenda. Sherry's not being a chicken little. She's right. Yeah, there's a bigger agenda and there are bigger things. But right now, I'm focusing on the immediate. What's about to happen within the next 6 months? Somebody's going to get in office. And if it's Donald J. Trump, then they're going to try to push this stuff. So we need to know. Private school is really great too if you can do it. Private school is great. You just have to check them out because a lot of how should I say this without sounding bad? A lot of people that do as I say and not as I do put their kids in private school. They want their kids to have a good education, but the way they live their lifestyle is not indicative of the way the private school runs. So private schools have a hard time sometimes with parents that put their children in there, but they act a certain way at home. And then there's a conflict because the kid will come back to school and say, my daddy did this or my mommy did this, that kind of thing. It's interesting. I think Denmark has one of the best rated school systems. That's interesting. I haven't looked at that. It is challenging, but we homeschool the grandkids. See, that's excellent that you homeschool your that's the best thing for them. And I've heard of situations where, this economy is different. So if there's a husband and wife situation and the wife has a great job, I've heard a couple of times that the husband stays at home and homeschools the children and they have their dad there. So I believe that's wonderful. There seems to be a growing chasm between the rich and the poor. It is growing. It is growing because that's what they want it to do. So let me go over and start talking about some of the things that they want to do. Federal, it goes into how the scores are low. So you've been shoving all this federal money into the school system for decades, and our scores are consistently lower in the United States and also competing with the world. They are consistently lower. We don't want that. The Department of Education guys have over 48,000 employees. Now, that's what I call a bureaucracy, and they want to stay that way. They do things to make sure that they stay there. These people want jobs. So it's almost like having a job created for you or somebody else. That's what happens a lot in Washington and in politics. There are jobs created for people's nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, six-figure jobs, just created for them. That's what happens. That's why a lot of people try to go after these positions. So they want to restore revenue responsibility for funding. They want to move some of these programs out of the Department of Education. So that would be part of gutting it, moving some of the worthwhile projects out of the Department of Education. That's something that I think is good. Like they want to move some of them to the Department of Education. There are programs in there that deal with the Native Americans. They want to move those over to what they still call the Department of Indian Affairs. And they talk about charter schools. The new administration must take immediate steps to rescind the new requirements and lessen the federal restrictions on charter schools. So there are a lot of restrictions on charter schools because the Department of Education doesn't like charter schools, and that's a problem. The next one on here, the new administration must quickly remove and rescind these changes which add a new non-binary sex category. And that part of it, you might have an opinion on it. I believe that based on what I've been hearing, biological boys should go in the boys' bathroom, biological girls should go in the girls' bathroom. There have been instances that they don't put out in the regular media where, biological male wanted to go in the girl's bathroom, not because he wanted to be a girl. You understand what I'm saying? And this whole thing about somebody being something because they want that in their mind. I've seen a whole bunch of parodies and these little, I forgot what you call them, memes, where people get on there. There was one of them where there was some, I'm not gonna even say that. Somebody went to a Zoom meeting because they identified as something, and the people that were in there were angry. He said, "Well, why can't I? If you can identify as that, why can't I identify as it?" It's just a hot mess. It's a soup, and it's a hot, messy, stinky soup that's going on. So let's see. Let's see. Let's go back. I missed some. Finland supposedly had the best with no standardized testing. I hear about Japan and China's, especially China, but they go to school all year. I've heard some people say homeschoolers turn out weird, but any homeschooler I've met was well adjusted. The people that are winning the spelling bees and all these big contests are usually homeschooled. They already got rid of ACT and SAT scores. Did they really? They don't want to compare anymore. Just like, when the financial world, they took away the measurements that we used to use to see how the economy was going, like the M3, I believe it was. Anyway, the children would be able to measure where they are based on these scores. And they have the standardized testing now. And this report, which I'm not going deep into it, said that the third graders and the eighth graders, they really are failing. Donald Trump said that he would send checks to parents for each child that is homeschooled. That would be wonderful. I mean, I'm way past that, but maybe that would help I have 2 grandchildren. Private school stole my 401k, all girls Catholic, none was arrested. Oh, wow. Embezzlement. Oh, man. That is awful. And there are some bad ones out there, because it was interesting that the school that my children were in, that we got told that we couldn't come back the next year. They got in some trouble at some point. Mess with God's people. Okay, let's see. What I find unfair is that if I don't have children due to health problems, I have to pay for the education of other kids with my real estate taxes, inclusive of illegal immigrant children. If you don't have children, I think in some states they give you an exclusion. They don't do that here, but I believe in some states. But no, anytime they put something in place to get money from you, they're not going to repeal it. I did a video this morning about the fact that Coca-Cola supposedly owes the IRS $6 billion, and they want them to pay that up front because the tax court ruled against Coca-Cola. So if they pay it up front, I want to see if they get it back. Okay. I worked with 3 homeschool 14-year-olds who got to go to college at 14. I've seen that also. They were awesome. I was a theater major and directed them in play. They have the discipline, they have the education. And I'm not talking about indoctrination, I'm talking about education. I found that homeschoolers are critical thinkers also. Some CSU bought into the dumbed down policies, and professors were giving group grades and online exams. More like the Department of Indoctrination. That's exactly right. Because really, it's kind of like pushing you over into not being entrepreneurial, but pushing you into the job market. If you look back at the history of school, and I did a talk on that a long time ago, when children were out on the farm, they were learning how to take care of that, and then they said, "Oh, we building these factories, and we need people to run these factories." That's when school started, guys. You're right, David Lee Williams. You're right. Never teaching you about Social Security, trust account, and banking. They don't want you to know about money. They just want you to work. What did Yuval Harari say? That guy that's Klaus Schwab's secondhand man. He said, we'll have nothing to do because we're going to be taken over by the AI, and they'll just give us drugs and entertainment. So bread and circuses. I can't stand our school system. Try your best to, if you can't, if you have children, try your best to do, if you can't homeschool or can't put them in private school, spend time at the school, make your voices heard, make your face known, and then I think your children will do better. School system doesn't work. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is the secretary should make it clear that this school system stuff allows parents full access to their children's education records. And so any practice of paperwork, obfuscation on this front violates the federal law. So what that's about is that the school system has been letting children do things without the parents' knowledge. So this is really criminal to me. I have a child, for example, and this child has been indoctrinated into something in the government school, and they want to go and get a body part taken off or something like that, whatever. They keep these records from the parents. So if you're going to indoctrinate a child into something that is against the parents' beliefs, then you need to take that child. You need to take care of that child for the rest of their lives, because a lot of these children either got maimed or something happened to them that was something medical where they had to be taken care of on a long-term basis. And so they allow, for example, when a child gets sick at school, they have to have the parents' permission to give them an aspirin. But if a child has some other medical situation, I'm trying to be, y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't do something to my child or let my child do something without me knowing about it and me having a decision. Until they get 18, they're in my house. So you're going to do something or let my child do something, and then you're going to send them home, and they're going to be in some kind of a physical trouble or mental trouble, which is what's happening. They want to stop all that, and I totally agree with that. And then there's some stuff about school discipline. About this section is interesting because a lot of kids are being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD, and some programs out there give money for it. And if there is a high concentration of a specific demographic of child having ADD or ADHD, this document doesn't want that area to get more money than anybody else, which doesn't make any sense. So if you're gonna money grab and say all these children have ADD and we're gonna get $2,500 each for them, then if they really have ADD, they need the money. So that one I didn't agree with at all. Now, there are some regulations that are in place right now that withhold money from schools or withhold services from schools that don't want to include sexual orientation in their writings or in their administration. And the school system really shouldn't be political. None of this should be political. The government shouldn't be withholding money because people don't want to do what they want to do. People have their own brains. States have their own brains. School systems have their own brains. And if a parent feels a certain way about a school system, they should be able to leave if that school system is too radical. So I don't like the idea of them withholding money. So I'm with this document saying they shouldn't be able to withhold money. The next one before I get back to the chat is, ooh, student loans. Ooh, student loans. Now they really are railing against the Biden administration for all the student loans that have been forgiven. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with forgiving student loans. Put a 2 in the chat if you disagree with forgiving student loans. The 1 in the chat if you agree with forgiving student loans, and a 2 in the chat if you don't. Put a 3 in the chat if you're really not sure. Let's see what we get down here. School systems do not work. The teachers' unions do not like charter schools. The teachers do not like charter schools. We need competition. Now, why is there a competition everywhere else except for in the school system? You know, I can choose to go to whichever grocery store around here or the farmers market and all that, but they don't want us to have choice in education. It's the everyone gets a trophy system, and that's not helping a child, and especially when they become an adult, because that helps them to be entitled. The sanctuary state of California set the precedent, and now even educators are using email closures with with pronouns he, him. Oh my goodness, yeah, that's a bit much. In Coca-Cola, I think they have nanotechnology in the drink now, and so is Pepsi. I don't drink any of that because it's just like it's drinking a half a glass of sugar, and that's not what I need right now. Not at all. Please see judicial notice. Okay. Keeping information from a parent, especially a minor, is criminal. I think it's a shame. Parents are denied access to college students' grades, yet have to pay to help them with tuition. Same thing with the elementary school. You are raising that child, you're feeding that child, you're putting a roof over that child's head, you're, paying for their clothes and everything. And then they're going to do things to the children or let the children do things that could just your income. So two, that I've got one that doesn't believe in student loan um uh what am I saying? Getting rid of the student loans. Forgiveness. Okay, there is no money, so it doesn't matter. They forgive the student loans. One, Babylon money, magic. It is. It is. Everyone needs to homeschool if they can. So should be set off. So my thing about the student loans is a lot of these people got caught in a trap. They were sold a bill of goods about having this college education. They spent thousands and even hundreds of thousands of dollars on a piece of paper, and they cannot get a job. This has started happening back, maybe 10 years ago. Prior to that, you could go to a decent school and get a decent job. But these people that run these colleges knew that AI and all this technology and all this was coming, yet they charged hundreds of thousands of dollars for sociology degrees and psychology degrees and all these other degrees. And these people, even people that have a master's degree, are working at the bank as a teller right next to somebody who has a high school diploma and a GED. They knew that. So it was another money grab. College tuition was another money grab. Thousands of dollars for a piece of paper that's worthless. So that's part of my belief system. The other part is, how many billions of dollars did we send to Ukraine? How many billions of dollars did we send over there? How many billions of dollars are we spending on people that walked across the border that are getting rent? They're getting food stamps. I saw a video yesterday where there was a lady in line at a store, and she used the food stamp card. I forgot the name of the card, but the lady behind her snapshotted it. It had a $13,000 balance. So this illegal lady had a $13,000 balance on her food stamp card. Okay. So if these people can come over here and get all of this stuff, Why can't these kids who were sold a bill of goods, get student loan forgiveness? That's just my thing. And then another thing I have down there, yeah, the $20,000, $200,000. I know somebody that spent over $200,000 on a degree, and it's barely making $90,000. So the fact that college is a sham these days is something that I talk about. I wouldn't tell a kid to go to college. I'll tell them to go get some kind of a skill like HVAC, plumbing, auto mechanic, nursing, those kinds of things. That's where the money is these days, because a lot of these six-figure middle management employees are shaking in their boots about the pink slip. Because I did a video not too long ago. It's not on YouTube, but a lot of these larger companies are dumping thousands and thousands of employees right now. So the next one, before I get back to the chat, is in the new plan should have an income exemption equal to the poverty line and require payments of 10% of income above the exemption. If new legislation is possible, there should be no loan forgiveness. But if not, existing law would require forgiving any remaining balance after 25 years, not after 10 years, not after 20 years, but after 25 years. So I did a calculation, and it's like, okay, so they're saying that the exemption should be at the poverty line. So that part should be exempt. So I'm going to give you the example. So someone gets out of school, they got a $200,000 student loan debt for a master's degree, and they're only making $100,000. They can't get a house, because the housing prices are at 450. So they're, renting a house somewhere. What the government wants them to do, well, the poverty line for a family of four is $26,200. So $100,000 minus 26.2 leaves them to have to pay on every year $73,800. 10% of $73,800 is $7,380 for the year, which has that person paying $615 every month for the student loan. And we got people running around with free apartments and stuff like that. That's my problem with it. Y'all might have a different problem with it. You might not have a problem with it. You might, want all these people got student loans to pay them back. And that would be okay in a perfect world, but it's not a perfect world. And if they're going to give out money to people who just walked up in here, just bust up in here, then, give these people a break too. I'm going to the chat. Babylon money, I said that one. I'm not even using my degree. Still have student loans to pay off. Nate, I would think that a majority of the people are in that same situation. They have a degree. They're not using the degree. They're doing something else to make money so they can live, but they're still paying off a student loan. And like I said, these people knew that these degrees weren't going to be anything. They knew in advance. So this was a money grab. They don't care about you. Ukraine is close to failing. I don't know what these folks are doing, but y'all be careful out there. College is a racket. Only go for specific skill sets. If you need a license, you need to be a doctor. You have to have a license to be a lawyer. You have to have a license to be a CPA. Otherwise, be a plumber or be a mechanic. I wanted to learn that before being a mechanic. I wanted to do that a long time ago. They need to get rid of the Federal Reserve. That is our biggest problem. Yes, I have that. I haven't gotten to the Federal Reserve yet, but that will be one of them. They're letting them come over and giving them so much money because they're giving them a social security number and harvesting the social security number trust account. That could be true. Yes. Note that if you watch the one that I just did on the Department of Treasury, I did find that report about replacement immigration, and I did link it in that video so you can understand what they're trying to do as they let all these people in. So the next one I have is they want to stop the closed or unaccredited schools discharge of debt. So there were some schools that popped up that were fraudulent and people didn't know it, and they went through these schools and either they got a fake piece of paper or the schools that they were going to didn't make it and closed down, and those loans were some of the first ones that were discharged. So this particular document wants no more of these loans to be discharged. They also want to stop the public service loan forgiveness. So if you're a teacher, nurses, fire department, all that, and you have a student loan, after 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, after 10 years of paying on that loan, you get it forgiven. And I know I have two teachers in my life, and both of them within 3 months got their total loans forgiven. And one of them was pretty hefty, so I know she was happy about that, and I'm happy about it too, because that's a house note. It's a house note, and you could do better just going ahead and paying off your mortgage or getting a second property instead of paying back a loan for something that it used to be. If you had a loan, a student loan, it was low, and then it afforded you to get the education so you could get the degree so you could have a high paying job, but it's just the opposite these days. And one of the interesting things in this paperwork is they want to make the colleges partly responsible for collecting the student loans so they can have some skin in the game. That's pretty interesting, since they're giving out these loans, since they're charging so much in tuition, then they need to take responsibility in getting some of the money back. So, and the next one is kind of a tough topic. It talks about getting rid of critical race theory. Now, I never did really pay that much attention to it. I know at some point or another they were raging about it, and they were talking about the Florida governor and all this other stuff. And these people want to get rid of it. And I believe that one of the problems is people don't have a foundational definition of critical race theory. So when you say that word, it means different things to different people. And if you're not on the same page, then things could get dicey. So my take on this information and my take on this critical race theory and funding for it, which they want absolutely no funding for critical race theory, whatever that is to them. This is what I put. I'm okay with some things, but I'm not okay with others. Do not hide or change history. Do not hide or change history. Don't fail to teach what was done just because you don't want students to feel a kind of way. We don't want to accuse them. We don't want to make them feel bad. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. This is what happened. However they feel about it in this touchy-feely world is however they feel about it. Just the facts. Do not leave out the fact that this happened or that happened, but don't beat people over the head with it when it is taught. Does that seem fair? If that's fair, put a 1 in the chat. Teach the truth. Don't skate around the truth. What happened in our history, American history? Teach it, but don't beat people over the head about it. That's one thing. You don't have to, have people, from what I heard, they were making some kids stand up and confess stuff about their great-great-grandfather. They didn't have anything to do with that. Don't leave out the teaching, but don't make people that are here now feel bad about what somebody else did. Good. So I see everybody's on the same page with that. Now, another thing that I put, which a lot of people think a little different than this, and I'm going to go to the chat after this. Don't make them feel guilty for what their ancestors did, but don't make them think they didn't benefit financially. This is where the financial piece comes in. There are a lot of people saying that, yes, I'm not responsible for any of this, and I'm not benefiting from it. It's like some people did benefit from this. I don't see how these people can say they didn't benefit from this. What happened in the past, they benefited from it. Their family has a lineage, some of them. whereas other people don't have a lineage. There was some benefit to it. So the denial of benefit, whatever you want to do with that, don't deny that there is a benefit from it. And I'm hoping that people agree with that too, because even in my personal family, there's a situation, a really horrible situation. My paternal grandparents are from South Georgia. They Okay, so they started out in South Georgia, and they were all together in the family. There was a doctor, a medical doctor. He was driving drunk. This is in 1939. He was driving drunk, and this is all documented with my relatives. He was driving drunk, and he hit the car of my relatives, which were coming back from the funeral of their father. When he hit the car, one of the wives was ejected, and some kind of way, the doctor's car ran over her. So her and the baby died. Evidently, they were afraid that my family was going to sue. And the night riders came. And not only did they run out the driver, which was is my great uncle, the whole family had to leave. Now, back then, y'all, they didn't have U-Haul. My family, lots of them, at least 12 people with wives, husbands, wives, and children, had to leave their homes because the night riders didn't want them there, because they didn't want to prosecute that doctor. So they up and left with what they had, and they went from South Georgia to Florida. Some of them ended up in Naples. Most of them ended up in Tampa. And one of them ended up in Daytona Beach with nothing but what they could carry. So in that situation, that doctor went on with his practice. So his family benefited, and my family had to start all over. You can't tell me there was no benefit from something like these things. And I hear this all over and over again. And I'm not trying to blame anybody for it. Just don't say there was no benefit. So that's what they want to do. Let me go to the chat about this. Let's see. They're letting them come over. I did that. It's become a dog whistle to get people in their emotions. Yes, instead of dealing with history as it. Well, I'm going to say that again. I got to say it again. What you said. It's become, and I think there's a kind of a way that I could, like, how do I do it? There's a way that I can put it. Let's see. I don't know. I want to, darn, there was a way that I could put it over in the. I'll find out. I'm gonna get somebody to come teach me how to do this stuff right. I really am. But at this point, I'm gonna read what it says, because I want other people to see. It's become a dog whistle to get people in their emotions instead of dealing with history as it was. And that's what they want to do. That it's all by design for them to get everybody in their emotions about it. For whatever reason, they want to do that. They want to cause a war. They want people fighting and all this. We don't need to be fighting each other, y'all. We need to be paying attention to what they're doing. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, blue, green, purple, polka dots, Jew, Christian, Muslim, whatever. They have an agenda against all of us. And these things that happen, they happen. But we don't need to get caught up in all that, especially emotionally. You see people on the mainstream media, and lately there's been a couple of people, this bald-headed black lady, I don't know. Anyway, they just getting all emotional. I don't know whether that person's doing that because they're acting for any of these people, whether they're being an actor for their channel, or whether they really feel that way. But this is not a time to get emotional. This is a time to be keenly focused on making sure that yourself and your family are fine, because some stuff, the excrement is about to hit the portable cooling device. It's already started hitting. Make sure your family's fine. Forget about what this person is ranting and raving about, and that person is screaming about, and what this new vice president that Kamala, whatever one it is, pick. All of that stuff doesn't matter. Focus on making sure you have yourself together. Like Lynette Zhang is one of the people that I listen to, and she has a list of 6 things. Food, shelter, water, hard assets like gold and silver, all these things that you need. Make sure you're okay with that. And if you're in an area with a lot of people, just make sure you can keep your stuff safe. We're not a race. We're men and women. We are humans, and we need to act like it, because everybody, as far as I know, everybody's blood is red. No longer is it about thinking, it's about feelings. And we need to, I'm in my feelings right now. Get out of them. It's most likely has the word human or person in it, or an individual or whatever. Sorry to hear about that. How devastating. I mean, these things happen, Jody, all over the place. It happened. Do not hide the fact that it happened. Do not beat people up about it that are here now. Do not let people say that there wasn't a benefit for some people. That's all I can say about that. Financially, there was a devastation. They started all over. One of my uncles is an electrician, one was a plumber. My grandfather was a mechanic, and he used to be in his garage, and he used to smoke these little cigar things. And they had these little, the tip part of it was a little white tip. And I used to pick them all up, and I used to put them on my nails like fingernails. I remember that. I used to love to hang out in his little garage. It's heartbreaking, but it happened. But we got to move on. We are so close. Satan plays on our emotions. Yes. The ability to make your own electricity. Now, I want to get into that a little bit, because there are people that have invented certain things and they have been deleted. There has been a person that invented some oil for cars that would make a car run, and you didn't have to change the oil. Either the invention was bought up by one of the big car companies and put on a shelf, unbeknownst to that person. They thought they were going to put it out there. There's been a paint that would withstand the rust, or withstand the snow and the salt in the ice, that was put on a shelf. There was someone that invented something that would make a car run on other than gasoline. These people get deleted. But again, another thing I found out, there is a clause. If you have a patent, there's a clause in there in the US patent documentation that says that for national security, they can take your invention. I did not know that. They can take your, it says it in there. They can, if you invent something that is so profound that it's going to shift nature, it's going to shift the balance of power, they can take over your invention. I guess that's part of why they have people register, but that's another story for another day. Let me see what else is on here. Okay, so we have restoring parents' rights, giving the give taxpayers money to the parents to choose the schools. The Department of Education hated school choice. They want to keep all those people employed. So they hated school choice. Even give them money if it's for private school. Then they can go wherever they want to go. Now, at the end of over a 10-year period, and this is the last one, over a 10-year period, federal spending should be halted, and all of it should be moved over or transferred over to the state. So what they're trying to do is, over time, to transfer all of the education responsibility to the states to make the decisions. Now, that's what I call competition. Now, somebody said, and this was a conversation I had some time ago, well, the states are going to be all on different pages. Well, that's not necessarily so. They could have a coalition, but it's more than likely that some states are going to have different rules than others. And some people have the right to just leave or not, or put their kids in the private school. Some people won't. So if a state, if one state wants to have this rule, and there's a lot of people in that state that don't want that rule, then they can go down to the capital, to the state capital, and protest that rule. And if a majority of the people want that particular rule, the people in the minority they have to make a decision as to whether they're going to leave or try to do something else with their children. And if they're getting the state money, then they can put their children in a private school or some kind of a charter school. So to me, it's a win-win for them all to have the money at the state level. I actually was a part of a political group back in the 90s, and I did do some speaking before the state Congress concerning education. Were those cigars Swisher Sweets by chance? I don't know. They were brown, and then they had a long white, whatever he used to use was long and white. And I just loved picking them up off the ground. That was so nasty now that I think about it. It was so nasty. But I would pick them up and I would just act like I had these long nails. You know, I don't like long nails anyway. You see, I have very short nails because I have to type a lot. But yeah, I thought that was cute as a kid. There is a lesson there too. Have the ability to pick up and move, but be able to thrive wherever you go. Yes. Neutral observation. This is what I want. This is what I want for me. This is what I want for you all. We talked about who moved my cheese. The cheese is moving all over the place, and the maize is even getting turned upside down. So we have to have the ability to pick up and move and be able to thrive wherever we go. If we have to move to another state, we need to be able to thrive there. If we need to move to another country, if we need to move to the same state in a different area, it all is based on what you're doing with your time right now. And starting a home-based business, what I call a portable business, one that you can travel with, one that you can do anywhere. And it may be something physical. I have what's called sister locks. And my loctician right now is in Costa Rica. And on the 14th, she'll be at my house. So my hair is going to get a little fuzzy, but she can take that with her wherever she goes. If you have an online company, if you're selling online, like selling on Amazon or eBay, you can do that as long as you have internet. You can do that anywhere. If you're coaching or consulting, and as long as you have internet, you can do that anywhere. So when you guys are picking a home-based business, pick something that you can do anywhere. That will be good for you. Next. Autorama in Detroit. About 20 years ago, a guy here had a Mustang that ran on steam. Local news did a story on it. Next day, his display at the show was gone, and so was he. I'm originally from Detroit too, and so that's where I got those stories from. So the oil that you didn't need to change and the paint that would stop the rust, same thing. These are the when you people are proud of what they invent, and they go to the patent office so that nobody else can take it, but that's not really what's happening. What is a judicial notice? A judicial notice is the only way in conventional language to bring. Okay, so that one is kind of like a little bit off topic, and I don't know what it's mean. Okay, we are not humans. We are men and women and people. We are men and women and people. Stanley developed a keen interest in the concept of water-powered vehicle, an idea possibly influenced by the 1973 Arab oil embargo, which severely restricted oil trade. We're some bright people. We're very creative. I would just caution you about creating something that's going to be taken away or have you getting into some kind of situations. If I invented something, I would just share it with everybody. I wouldn't, you know what? We get in trouble a lot of times when we want to do a press release. You know, I was taught not to do press releases. If I'm going to do something, just do it. If I was to invent something that was great, I would just start sharing it with everybody, not worrying about the money, because when you're dealing with trying to get the money, that's when you try to get the restriction on your thing and keeping it to you. And then that's when you got to deal with these departments of whoever who can take your invention. Hydrogen sounds nice. The water fuel cell is a non-functional design for a perpetual motion machine created by Stanley Allen. Okay, I need to move it up. Yeah, send yourself a self-addressed stamped envelope with your invention inside, so it's dated, and don't open it. So that's called the poor man's copyright. So when you write books, you can do that too. I usually will copyright my books, but when I finish writing them, I will bind them up and put them in one of those priority mail things and mail it to myself. I put that priority tape around it, then I put the priority, mail stamp on there, and then it comes back to me, and I put it away so that I can show that that was my book. How about becoming a bookkeeper like those ads on YouTube? I don't know about the ads, but being a bookkeeper is okay. It's not as flexible and mobile, because if you're a bookkeeper, let's say here in Atlanta, and you have a whole bunch of clients and you have to up and leave, you got to go somewhere else and create more clients. Or you can try to keep the ones that you have. A lot of people, when it comes down to bookkeeping, they like somebody in the same area. Some people don't care. My CPA that deals with my companies is in Oklahoma. But yeah, that's not as mobile, but it will work. Thank you, Adrian Nicole, for appreciating my knowledge and wisdom. Jordan Maxwell said, the controllers of the world do not want you to help the human family. They do not. They do not. I've been on a Mediterranean cruise with Jordan Maxwell when he was still alive, and got a chance to spend some time listening to him. And he was a powerhouse of wealth. Just that knowledge. And it was, anyway, cling to people who are trying to teach you something instead of foolishness. I don't need to be sitting up here telling you about what I wore today or where I got this necklace from and all that. That's foolishness. I need to be imparting information in you that's going to help you propel and thrive when this stuff happens. Maxwell was spot on in many things. He was also an adherent of Blavatsky. Yeah, Jordan was cool. When we I'm gonna run, and I will probably be back on Friday night. I have some Zooms tomorrow, and I have a late client. I have clients all over, even out of the country, but the client for tomorrow night is in California. So, they're 3 hours behind. So during the time that I will be doing a live, I'll be dealing with my client. But right now, between now and next May, I feel like between now and February, I think we need to be on our toes, just trying our best to do whatever we can do to shore up our families. Try to start a business. If you've got a job and you really don't think that a business is right for you right now, try to work overtime if you can. Try to figure out some things that you have at your house that you might sell. If you got an extra car, something, anything, just try to start getting resources together and learning. I think you should learn how to start something on the side, because again, that's going to save you money at the end of the year. If you start a business right now, you'll be able to write off your cell phone, your internet, your computer, just about everything. You'll just be able to do that. So every time you are on the road and you're doing something for business, you get mileage and all this. And so if you have a W-2, it's going to be less and less and less taxed because you have your business expenses. Yes, I would rather spend money on business expenses than give it to them. How about you? Put a 1 in the chat if you'd rather spend your money on things that are going to enhance your business then give it to them. Anyway, let me see, there's a few things down here. 202 is going to be 2025 is going to be downside of the roller coaster. That's so unfortunate, but I believe it because if you look back, there's another video, guys. I forgot the name of it, but this guy talks about history, and he goes through the ebbs and flows of history, and it's about time for the United States to fall off the bandwagon as far as being the on the top of the hill, and we're actually past due. I forgot this guy's name, and I'll try to think of it. Let me write it down to have that put in the chat. Okay, yes. Thank you for sharing your story about how your family had to move. Learning real history is important. That's why I'm reading more. I appreciate you. Yes, I mean it happened. It didn't. It made them stronger, but it. I wonder sometimes because they had houses and stuff. I wonder sometimes where my family would be financially if they hadn't had to be put out like that. And it's just sometimes I daydream about it. Sometimes I think I'm going to write about it, but we just got to keep pushing. And with that, I am going to go upstairs and start working on one of the dynamic things I have in store for the Escape the Rat Race Challenge. I am going to put that information. I think it's already in the description. Escape the Rat Race Challenge.com. Is this recorded so I can start from the beginning? It will be when I shut this down. It'll be on my YouTube channel, Escape the Rat Race with Sherry. It will be on there. I think someone said most empires only last around 200 years. That's right, just Reese, and we're overtime. We're overdue, and I don't want to be here when all of that stuff happens. Would love to read all of your books. So my books are at sherrypeeljackson.com. You can get them from there. I don't have them on Amazon anymore because they take half the money. Thank you, guys. You all have a wonderful evening, and I'm going to try to come back on Friday with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Have a great evening.